This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Hello and welcome everyone to our 231st session of HalloCasa. My name is Michael and today I'm talking to Julian Josephs from Washington, D.C. in the US. Julian is a global leader in real estate and the president of Julian Josephs Company, where he oversaw the development and marketing of over $350 million in real estate in the DC metropolitan area and beyond. Julian is past World President of FIABCI, the International Real Estate Federation, and a proud recipient of the FIABCI Medal of Honor, an accolade awarded to only a select few globally since 1963. He also served as a director of the Global Housing Foundation, supporting low-cost housing initiatives in the developing world. Julian's career spans London, Brussels, Paris, and Chicago, working for top firms including Jones Lang Wootton, now part of JLL, Hampton & Sons, Romanek, Golub, Madison Marquette, and Chain Links Retail, where he led international investment programs, leasing and developing projects totaling hundreds of millions of US dollars. He is also a dedicated educator, teaching as an adjunct professor at Georgetown University, the oldest and largest Catholic and Jesuit university in the US, with a global presence in Washington, Doha, Qatar, and beyond. Julian also taught at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, an AACSB accredited institution shaping business leaders who grow economies and societies, and at INSEAD, where he taught global real estate as part of their MPA program. Additionally, he served as an America's board member and governing council member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, advancing members' interests and expanding the international reach. Julian, thank you so much for your time today. It's definitely an honor to speak to you, and thank you so much for taking your time to speak with me. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience in your own words?
My career has been in global real estate. I was lucky enough to first go to start off as with Jones Lang in London and Brussels and Antwerp before moving to France and working with global real estate investors who were starting to go overseas into France from other countries. I then decided I wanted to go and join the advance of global real estate into America. So I was able to be accepted by INSEAD, where I got an MBA and managed to get a job in America. I was first in New York for 3 months and then joined Romanek Golub in Chicago, where I got the appetite for cross-border transactions and led their advance into bring European money into America, which was just starting off, which is what I wanted to do. And that was the foundation for my career.
What motivated originally to start your career into real estate and move into this direction and industry?
I think the fact that cross-border business was just starting off. I was lucky enough to be there at the beginning. There hadn't been many cross-border transactions when I started this role, and it was right at the very crest of happening. So I was lucky enough to do that. Jones Lang Wootton was a global real estate company, which afforded me the opportunity of using my contacts to create transactions. And then I saw the US as the next forefront of bringing this cross-border, cross-Atlantic real estate advance into action. And going to Romanek Golub in Chicago and then starting my own company in Washington afforded me that opportunity.
You mentioned the direction of money flow when you started, moving old European money to the basically sort of like new world still in the US. That was a new thing. Now, talking with people from around the world, I have the sense that this has almost been reversed, that we have now US investors buying in Europe and in other countries. How would you see has this entire global money flow evolved during your career in terms of real estate?
That's the correct assumption. When I started off in Europe, there were very little American money coming in to Europe. Just Trammell Crow and Lincoln and perhaps one or two other funds were looking to invest in Europe, in France. They started off in Paris. Now it's a global track where people don't think about as much about going across borders. Then it was new. Now it's a matter of course.
What do you think has also changed for investors when considering foreign real estate markets? Are there certain particularities where use or of which you think are much more important to consider when talking cross-border real estate transactions versus domestic ones?
There are a lot of considerations. First of all is the tax structure. If you put money in, you want to get it out. Are you able to get it out? When pension fund managers invest for their pension funds, they want to make sure not only that they can get money in, but most importantly, they can receive that income as easily back, and also that going forward, there will not be problems in a new government putting conditions on getting their monies out for their investors.
Do you think that there are right now certain geographies which have totally changed from an international investment point of view, where you say when you started, it was basically a no-go area? You definitely don't want to move your money. And right now, it has actually become something which is a very good choice, and people are not hesitant to move their money into this geography.
There is always a risk reward analysis, and change of governments sometimes put conditions on monies coming in from other countries. So one has to be aware of the political stability when investing in countries. That's not changed. But from when an investor puts money in one country, there sometimes are change of governments. And I think boards and directors have to be aware that this is an ever-changing situation. One has to be very much on the ball when one invests in other countries.
Talking about the risk and reward balance, do you have a rule of thumb in order to analyze potential markets, maybe also new opportunities to say sometimes it can be the political change, a government change where you want to get in, and thinking about market opportunities and maybe new elements. Is there a certain framework or methodology you also maybe teach students to look out for and to apply when conducting your decision-making process?
I wish there were. It is always a situation which is ever changing, and governments change, and policy changes in each country the whole time. And one just has to be very much aware that one looks at each market, at each country very carefully. There is no rule of thumb. It's impossible. But One just has to make sure that one analyzes the political stability, any conditions on taking money out of the country or investing in it, and how new laws might apply to those investments.
Looking back at your career, have you been encountered or have you been in a situation yourself or with any of your mandates and clients which forced you to make radical decisions regarding pulling out money again, selling something, or entering into maybe even an unstable market from the outside, but then make a bold decision and entering something? Anything from your vast experience?
No, I think when one is moving a great deal of money, and mostly other people's money, into a country, one has to be very sure that that money is safe. The last thing one needs is insecurity in that money. And you need to be able to invest it safely with good advisors, legally, with great legal advisors, and make sure you can always take that money out if the investments allow at the right time. The last thing one needs is to find there is a hold on that money and the original investor, and I mean this, the investor in the pension fund, has their money inhibited by new laws in that country. When we did our investments here in Washington for 2 Dutch pension funds, we invested here in projects in a new area. Luckily, that new area became very good, but it was a risk. It was a new development. It was starting off. And I think one has to analyze the location, the first rule of real estate, very carefully to make sure that that location is one where properties will grow around it. So you will be in the center, not on the outskirts. So my rule would be always to try and go in the center of real estate activity, not on the outskirts.
Talking about your roles at FIABCI, you served as World President and received the Medal of Honor. What did this role teach you about also leadership in global real estate? Because you have been exposed to so many thought leaders around the globe. What is one of your main learnings covering and holding and carrying this role?
FIABCI incorporates real estate in around 50 countries around the world. Every country is different. Every national perspective is different. We come at it from different angles. So it has taught me that one has to look at real estate from a global perspective, not just a national perspective, not just an individual perspective. And one has to analyze what the goals are from investors around the world. FIABCI incorporates many different voices, many different thoughts, with good reason. And one has to realize that some real estate economies are much more developed than others. And as much as we can help the less developed economies and real estate markets be developed further, it is our expectation that we can be there to advise and help as countries develop their real estate markets more to maturity.
Regarding your education and mentorship, you have been teaching at Georgetown University, Johns Hopkins, Carey Business School. How have you been always successfully been able to integrate your professional experience into teaching, especially also regarding international investment and development, in order to maybe also instill a certain mindset and skill and education into the next generation?
Yeah, part of my courses is I bring speakers from all over the world to speak to my classes. I think it's really important that the students that I teach have different perspectives from other investors and developers around the world. What I do in each course is I give my students an amount of money, say $100 million, to invest in a country of their choice, in a real estate portfolio. And it can't be just one sector, or one city. It has to be a mixed portfolio. And they have to look up and understand how that market works in those countries and learn about it and decide going forward how they will be able to put that into practice. I then give them $100 million from that country to invest in the United States. So they have to reverse it, and they have to put together a mixed portfolio to a lesser extent in the US, so they learn about the US market from an overseas point of view. I want them to understand how overseas investors look at the US and how they should look at markets overseas from a US pension fund manager's point of view.
You used to be director of Global Housing Foundation and support low-cost housing initiatives. How do you see real estate and also affordable housing evolving and this entire topic towards the future?
That's a very good question. It's a big question. I think as real estate leaders, it is incumbent on us to see how we can expand low-cost housing around the world in the markets where we go. It's not always a high priority, but in ways that we can contribute to advancing that cause. It is FIABCI's goal, and it is, I think, goal of people in real estate to see how that can be done. It isn't always viable. It isn't always encouraged by those countries. But if we can do it, I think it's very important we try and do it.
Looking back on at your career, has there been a pivotal moment where you had to decide maybe, or you had a very challenging time, and how did you overcome it? And maybe how could you give tips maybe for the younger generation who might face drawbacks and challenging times?
I think the pivotal moment for me was moving from Europe to the United States, because it was right at the start when European money was looking to come into America. To cross to a different continent overseas in a new country without a role is difficult. While I was at INSEAD, I was lucky enough to be invited to come over to interview with Goldman Sachs to look at how I might work with them more on the finance side. And I realized that wasn't for me. I was a real estate guy. And rather than take a job where I didn't think I met the qualifications, I decided to go and look for a job in a company that had global real estate aspirations, which is why I ended up in Chicago with Romanik Golub. And I think one has to realize that there are an envelope that you fit into, and there's some that you don't. And if you have the perspective that, hey, it might be a little more risky, but I know this suits me better, it's worth taking that risk.
Now, talking to someone who just starts their international real estate career, what advice would you give someone also with respect to the ever-changing world with new technology? Is there anything you would give as a tip to someone?
What has changed with technology changes how we look at real estate. I had to do a tremendous amount of travel, because when I started off, the internet wasn't there. One has to go face to face. And the only way of starting and doing a transaction was to meet with those investors and bring them over to see the property. I think as someone who is starting off, one has to know the personalities. You can only understand so much on the internet or on telephone. You have to meet the people, understand their goals, set up an understanding where they have confidence in you and vice versa, because that is the only way that transactions get completed. And one has to always look out for ways that can enhance those transactions that might suit the global perspectives of that particular investor. Because when you look at their properties they have assembled in the countries where they are, you get a much better understanding of what they might be looking for overseas.
You have been deeply involved in international real estate for decades, and you also have attended many global real estate conferences. Has this ever been the case that you have the opportunity to meet people from all over the world and across the world, or is that something which has changed within the industry?
That's a very good question, because over the last 40 years, global real estate has changed. FIABCI started off with the World Congresses, and then we had MIPIM come in Cannes in South France, introduced by Reed Midem. It's been a very effective annual meeting for FIABCI members and other global real estate transactions participants to work and meet each other for very fruitful days. Expo Real in Munich followed very quickly soon afterwards, which has also been very good at giving real estate transaction makers the opportunities to work together. We didn't have that opportunity when I started off. Now it is there for young people to get education, working with exhibitors and attendees to understand global real estate better. And then MAPIC for the retail was put together by Reed Midem at the time. They changed their name now to, I guess, RX, but it's been a very effective way for retail global real estate transaction makers in Europe to work together. Now that is an opportunity for person-to-person contacts, and it is so much easier to start work and finish transactions when you can actually meet the people. And these global real estate exhibitions have given the opportunity for people to do that kind of business.
Julian, thank you so much for your time today. I know your time is very limited, and you gave us an amazing insights regarding your career. You started and talked about your earlier career, your motivation to join real estate, the element of cross-border transactions, which definitely hooked you into this entire industry. The element of the old money flowing from Europe to the US and vice versa, and the evolution of it. Considerations when regarding and analyzing certain geographies, such as taxes, getting the money out again, or even governmental changes. And you mentioned the risk and reward balance and how to try to analyze it, even though you say it is very challenging and very difficult. You also mentioned the element of education and mentorship, and how you teach your students in a very practical way to get a feeling of geographical challenges and how business is being conducted differently around the world by those two case studies. You also gave us a great insight regarding your past role in Global Housing Foundation, and also the important role of social housing in the past, but also for the future. You mentioned the impact which FIABCI has and the importance of this federation and also your impact there. And lastly, you showed us how you give back to international real estate professionals and tips in a ever-changing world right now with the digitalization and the new technologies. Is there anything else you would like to mention to the audience which we haven't touched upon?
I think FIABCI has given me the opportunity of looking at countries where perhaps the global real estate markets are not as developed as mine. So the FIABCI reach to countries where real estate is just starting to progress gives one the opportunity of working with those who might need that expertise, the understanding to complete real estate transactions that they wouldn't otherwise. And it's a network which gives young professionals that opportunity, which no other organization in the world has. So I've been lucky to be a member there and to progress in that organization.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Julian. If people listen to this and they would like to get in contact with you, how can they reach out to you?
Through my email address.
Okay, perfect. Julian, thank you so much. I'm sending the best regards to Washington, D.C. And one more time, thank you so much for joining the podcast and for talking to me today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This video is brought to you by HalloCasa.